The beginning of the end of the mind begins with the understanding that there is going to be an awareness that supersedes the thought processes or the thought algorithms of the mind. There's going to be a place, a treasure in your heart that reveals the dichotomy between juxtaposing ideas and meanings of life. And now you're going to have to choose. You're going to have to choose your identity, which is attached to platitudes or ideologies or anything of the sort, and freedom. But in that freedom is a sense of danger and intimidation. And you are most intimidating unto yourself when you get to that point. And so I want to welcome everybody to another Semen Retention Sunday episode here on the Regal Change account. And all of the Regal Change old timers know that Semen Retention Sunday is every Sunday. We always do a Semen Retention episode because we want to encourage people, specifically the men, to have an understanding of the sacredness of their seed, and that it is not something to be wasted for no reason. And there will be something spiritually powerful in your endeavors to be more full of life with yourself. And in that mode of being, you will discover all of these different transcendent ideals and things within you that you can begin to attain. The biggest thing that semen retention will do for you is help you understand that when you are intimidating to others, it is not because of necessarily a sense of vanity that you want to impose onto others. It is a sense of understanding that you have a greater energy within you, and sometimes people will be intimidated by this. They might seem like they admire it. They might seem like they respect it. But when was the last time that you heard of really powerful people being defeated by their enemies? It really doesn't happen too often. What happens the most in these types of defeats occurs when there is an enemy within their own camp, someone who is betraying the other person. Betrayal is the most common form of a powerful person's downfall. And if you don't believe me, then look at all of the different types of mythologies available in the literary works available, as well as the history that we do know of and that we can verify. For example, Caesar and Brutus. You too, Brutus. You too. That's something that many people do not understand, and yet it's always right in front of us the whole time. So there's a sense of understanding that with this intimidation comes great power. But like Spider-Man's uncle says, with great power comes great responsibility. There seems to be the proliferation of fear when this happens, when you gain more and more momentum. Now, momentum is not everything when it comes to life and semen retention specifically, but momentum is sacred. However, you must also understand that if momentum is the only thing that is keeping you going in business or friendships or anything of the sort, it is, by definition, a high-cost, low-value timeline. And anything that is a high-cost, low-value timeline is not necessarily something that perhaps you want to be a part of. I would encourage more so the low-cost, high-value or the high-cost, high-value timeline. And the reason for this is because, well, you don't want to be on a low-cost, low-value timeline, otherwise you're going to remain stagnant. Because Well, what does that even mean, right? A low cost, low value timeline. How do you determine what's low cost and what's low value or high value? Well, value is timelessness. Value is a part of timelessness. It's a principle within timelessness. And so semen retention teaches you to see the value of things rather than the cost of things. And this is something that I think many people would do well to understand, but they don't necessarily understand it to the fullest degree. They don't understand the true difference between cost and value, because to understand the value of something is to understand that there's a sense of timelessness to it. But to understand the cost, well, that's immediate. And what I have found is that people who are focused on or hyper-focused on the cost of semen retention, for example, where they have to make a sacrifice of not playing with themselves or not going on Bonely cans or whatever for a few days or a few weeks or whatever the case is, all of a sudden they can't afford it. They can't afford the cost. Well, why not? Well, because they don't see the value. Because they don't value themselves. Anybody who does not value themselves is simply incapable of seeing the cost appropriately. Because everything in this life has a price, and everything in this life has a cost, but not everything in this life has value. And that is something that perhaps maybe if we were a little bit more literate spiritually, financially, emotionally, and physically, we would begin to see the true meaning behind the difference between these things, cost and value. And semen retention naturally puts you on a course to where you yourself, the ego, the unhealthy version of the ego, is now going to see that it has to pay a high price to get a high value. It has to destroy itself. It has to willingly walk into the fire and the flames of purification, the fires of righteous indignation in of itself, to get rid of itself so that there can be something new that is resurrected. There's something new that is reborn. There's a rebirth. Because like something that I learned from Avatar, the Last Airbender, when he goes and he approaches the guru and he's opening his chakras, Aang is opening his chakras, something that the guru tells Aang is that love is a form of energy and it swirls all around us. There's always going to be something that is reborn in the form of new love once that grief is laid out before you. And so when he gets to the heart chakra, Aang lays out his grief of the air monks or the nomads or whatever they were, right? And he lays out the grief before him in the spiritual realm, and he sees how they're now reborn in the form of new love, which is that of Katara, the waterbender that is with him and found him in the ice, which is also very peculiar as far as the symbolism goes, because that demonstrates that the eternal image of the feminine is going to nurture the avatar, and I don't mean the avatar as in the sense of just a meat suit. It's the avatar in this sense is kind of like the Übermensch of Nietzsche, but not necessarily quite the Übermensch. You see what I'm saying, though, nonetheless. The symbolic meaning behind this is still going to be very powerful and potent. And so the eternal image of the feminine wakes up. The anima brings awareness into the existence of the ego. Because the ego will operate unconsciously until the anima demonstrates that there's something more to be awakened here. Now, for those that are not familiar with the anima and the animus is something that Carl Jung had developed in talked quite a bit about it in his work, Ion, here. And something that he refers to is these archetypes. Now, those that are Regal Change old-timers understand that I've been developing the Regal timeline theory more so recently. And I've been incorporating it in my teachings and in my speeches and such, and my works. And although I think of myself as a teacher, I'm also a student, of course, because I'm always growing and I'm always learning. And so the archetypes that Carl Jung came up with, such as the anima and the animus, is something that I'm building with in the Regal timeline theory. Nonetheless, the anima is the totality of feminine experiences inside a male psyche. The animus is the totality of masculine experiences inside a female psyche. And so there's something in us that is a feminine experience or a masculine experience, depending on who you are, of course, that we have to learn how to relate to internally. There's nothing like freshly poured coffee from the French press, you know. So, with that, the more you understand and develop yourself, and you develop a relationship with your unconscious, the anima or the animus, you're naturally going to have a better relationship with members of the opposite gender. Because the better of a relationship you have with your unconscious, the better relationship you're going to have with the opposite gender. It's just simply a fact of psychological individuation and development. And so what I have determined is that when you start to develop this relationship with your anima, especially when you're on semen retention, is that you'll start to encounter spiritual battles, per se, that many people have maybe not even understood or recollected that could possibly even exist. And you might fall on your face multiple times, spiritually speaking or metaphorically speaking, or maybe quite literally, right? Maybe there's just too much energy inside of you. Because that is something that many men go through on semen retention. They don't know how to handle the newfound energy, and so they have to release it. And I'm not necessarily saying that you should release it. I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't. But what I'm saying is that it's the body is a vessel of your consciousness. And if you truly cannot handle the energy, that means that your vessel, your body, has not quite learned through and unlearned the trauma programming, or what I call zombie programming, because everybody in this world is designed to be in a system that makes them into a zombie that gives their spiritual energy to the system, which in turn gives energy to the energy vampires and the satanic people that are running the country and running the world. And what I perceive to be the case is that although these are demonic people or satanic people, what we have to understand is that they worship sinfulness. They worship time fullness. They are wanting to be in this material physical plane indefinitely. And so one of the reasons that you'll begin to intimidate not only yourself, but other people on semen retention is because you naturally go against the system that is designed to make you a slave. And what is so profound to me is that the more I develop my relationship with my anima, the less I feel connected to other men, And it's not to say that I can't relate to them, because they can relate to me just fine, but I have a hard time relating to other people, which I found is very interesting. But I get along more with women, even though most of them are Jezebels, even though most of them are really annoying and loud and obnoxious. There is nothing quite like the sight of a man who is petty in spirit and will smirk in his narcissistic ways at the sight of you going through a struggle or going through some kind of form of hardship, and you thought that this person was in fact on your team, so to speak. And in fact, they were not on your team at all. They were a crab in the bucket. And what I found is that the anger that arises from this feeling of betrayal is really a actualization of being so frustrated that there is someone on your team who is actually praying and doing what they can to ensure your downfall. Because now that actualization of anger is more so a representation of why you are not the way that you want to be just yet. And what I've also noticed is that most people are scared of failing publicly. And the thing is that fearing that end of the world type of feeling of failing publicly is actually the prerequisite to internal sovereignty and internal power. And you have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to fall on your face. You have to be willing to do things that are wrong. Something that I've been really into recently is bookbinding. Don't ask me where and how this came about, but I was captured in my imagination by this need for it. Like, I needed to understand, I needed to learn, and so I've gone out and I've gotten the resources I needed. It's really not that expensive, honestly. You can get like everything that you need for $30 to really start bookbinding, which is, again, really not that expensive of an investment. But I've done this because I simply want to rejoice in the new craftsmanship. I have no plans of making money with this. I have no plans of doing an ROI on any of these things either. And what I found is that a lot of what I've done recently in the past few years is, if I'm not getting an ROI on this, well then why should I even do it? But the problem with that is that, well, but if it's not fun, then why even do it at all? Why bother? Why bother? And I swear, having fun intimidates people, even yourself. And having fun can be, and it's not to say that I don't have fun. I don't know how to have a good time and rejoice. I do. I love to dance. I love to sing. I love to play my guitar just to play it. I like to just play it just to play it. I like to do things just to do things. But I've noticed that there's been a particular trend where I'm doing things more because I'm needing to grow. And even that fun turns into a form of growth or productivity. And I don't necessarily like that, because I love playing sports, for example, right? I love playing racquetball recently. I've been very much so into racquetball over the past 6 months. And I used to play tennis very often, so I've been able to pick it up pretty quickly. And I love it. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the process of just being part of the racquetball experience and just the quick pace of it. And it can be a very good workout for cardio as well. If you're actually playing, you're really playing, it's going to be a very, very good workout. I mean, there will be times where even after just 30 to 45 minutes of playing with some of the guys that I've played with, you come away just feel like you ran 10 miles, right? Even though you're just going side to side very fast and all the time. It's just, yeah, you have to run forward and back, because with tennis, the ball is only coming from the forward position, right? But with racquetball, the ball could come from the side, it can come from this side, it can come from behind or forward, or like up and down, the different kinds of spin that you can place on it. It's basically pressurized tennis. And I kind of like it though, because you have to play chess a little bit with it. It's a different kind of form of chess. But anyway, I like this because it gives me a sense of understanding, a more in-depth analysis of growth, but also I'm still able to have fun. I'm still able to have fun. And so with bookbinding, for example, and doing all these things and learning about this and learning how to thread the needle, right? And to do proper folds and to learn how to, stick the needle in through the right hole through the right way to get the thread and everything just aligned perfectly, and the different kind of knots that you can make. It's a form of craftsmanship. And you know what? I enjoy it. I enjoy this thing. I don't need to do anything with this for ROI. And I don't really plan to. I want to make my own journal, really, with these things. I'd love to make my own journal. That's really one of the reasons why I was so interested in it, is because I wanted to learn. Well, because I always write in my journals, right? Like I have a journal that I write in all the time. I even had my own book that I write in, and that I wrote and published last year. Over the past 5 years, I wrote this book. I wrote this book for the last 5 years, published it last year, and now I have the opportunity to learn how to do a book binding. There's something about a book that makes it feel like a portal. It's almost as if when I look at the books in my room, the books, it's not that the books are in my room, it's that the room has my books. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Do you understand what I mean? Because the books, they're portals into new worlds and domains. And I think that this is something that makes you intimidating as well on semen attention, is that you see the finer things in life. You see the value. You see the quality. You see why it is that you are doing anything at all. You start to realize that there's way more to life than just trying to do things for productivity. Because don't get me wrong, business is very important to me, and doing good business, having my one-on-one sessions and my Godlike Mastery program, these are all good things that I want to capitalize on in the future. And I have a certain set of understandings and ways in which of going about business that I want to do. And the gym is important to me. Nutrition is important to me. These are all forms of growth and fun to me. But I'm still, in doing all these things, I have to like be productive with it. I have to be letting go of the fun aspect, even though it is kind of fun. I have to let go of that. And so something that I'm aiming to do with this newfound obsession with bookbinding is enjoy it, just to enjoy it. Just enjoy the process. Just enjoy. Because where else really is there to go in this life? I've been to hell. And I've also had forms of heavenliness in my state of mind. And now I can see that heaven and hell are both places and states of mind in the mind. I no longer believe, because I don't really believe anything anymore. I don't need to believe anything. Something either is or something is not. There's a maturation and a form of maturation that comes with this. And so heaven and hell to me are just forms of good and evil. And if you operate from a place of timelessness in relation properly to your unconscious mind, well, then you're in heaven by all intents and purposes. And what exactly is there to do in heaven? You can always be in paradise. You don't have to think to be in paradise. You don't have to be conscious to be in paradise. And that's really something worth thinking about. Because I'm not saying not to think. I'm not saying not to be conscious. What I'm saying is that you could get to a point to where you're so conscious, you're so aware, that all forms of good and evil fall away. And that is what's most intimidating to other people, and even unto yourself, on semen retention, because it is a tool to get to that point. So with all that being said, I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. I hope everybody stays blessed. Sign up for a one-on-one session with me or the Godlike Mastery program that I have, and check out the links in the description box below for more information. Peace be with you. Until next time.